and I am one of the career counselors, and we will be presenting this information for our College of STEM. And just so you do know, we will be recording this session, and I will be planning on presenting and sharing this information. And then at the end, we will be leaving time so that we can answer any of your questions regarding this material. All right, so let's begin. So what I want to do is at least give you an introduction to who we are. Some of you probably have met with us, but we are Career Services and Employer Relations, also known on campus CSER, and we're welcoming back our students. We are there, we're here to help you with all of your career needs. A little thing that's different because of COVID, our office is open, but we are limiting our contact in the office. So all of our appointments will be virtual. We can either meet you online, on Zoom, we can have phone appointments, and we can correspond in terms of our emails. So our remote or virtual office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And let's see, so let's just make sure I didn't skip anything. So as I mentioned, our appointments are virtual, and you can set up those appointments using Starfish. You can set up appointments to have your resume reviewed, cover letters critiqued, and again, we can do this via email and phone and virtual appointments. For some of you, if you do need to do some type of self-assessment, we have 2 different resources that you can find on our website, and that would be Focus 2 and NAC. And NAC is actually an app that you would download right on your phone. The other big part of what we help you with, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing this presentation and getting prepared for our job and our virtual internship fairs next week. So we can help you with job search guidance, kind of strategies of how you're going to begin your search, whether it be for an internship or a job. Mock interviews, I can't tell you how important these types of meetings are. We can help our students really feel more confident when they are getting ready to go for an interview, whether it be for a internship or a full-time job. And the other thing that we do for those of you who might be planning to look at graduate school after FSU, we can help you through that process of exploring and making some decisions if you do want to go to grad school. So I wanted to make sure you knew where you could find a lot of different resources and how you could get to our website. So this slide just does show you how you would get to our website from the homepage. And also very specifically right below, right here, if you go on to this link, you actually would go right to the part of our website that is geared for you, for students. So I encourage you to explore our website because it's very thorough and there's a lot of information right there. One other resource that you should know about, especially when you want to look at sample resumes and sample cover letters, we have it's called the Career Search Guide. And on this slide is the link to the electronic version of this document. And along with those sample resumes and sample cover letters, it's just an extremely comprehensive resource, and it'll talk about how to find an internship, how to prepare for virtual job fairs, and just all sorts of job search topics. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And at the bottom of the screen, I do say, make sure that you do have one of us take a look at your resume and your cover letters. I wouldn't just rely on a resource and a sample resume or sample resumes you look at, because we can give you some more personalized input about things you might want to change. You might have certain questions about what you should include on your resume. All right, so many of you should be very familiar with Handshake. Handshake actually will be hosting our virtual fairs all of next week. But if you've used Handshake in the past, you probably have seen how we have all different types of jobs posted there. There's on-campus jobs, full-time jobs, part-time jobs, internships, and it's a great resource for you. And you can use Handshake and update your profile and keep employers up to date, and you can follow different employers if you're interested in eventually applying for an internship or pursuing a full-time job with with a particular company that's listed on Handshake. So definitely get familiar with Handshake. And you already do have a profile on Handshake. You've been pre-registered once you became a student at Framingham State. So all you really need to do is go in there, and then you can set up your password and create a profile. So you can basically say to Handshake, I will be looking for a lab assistant job, or I will be looking for an IT internship. So definitely visit this platform. And as I mentioned, Handshake will be hosting our virtual career fairs all next week. And for our STEM students, that event will take place this coming Monday, October 5th, from 12:30 to 2:30. So let's just talk a little bit about kind of a checklist as you prepare for our virtual job and internship fair. Any of the fairs that you would like to attend next week, you do need to register on Handshake. That will be very important. And for our STEM students, as I mentioned, that's Monday, and you can register for that and get scheduled. But if there are other events that you want to attend, because I know sometimes students have a minor and a major, so if you want to attend, say, the business virtual fair, because you're interested in some of the companies that will be there, you have that option, to do that. The other thing that you need to do when you're getting ready for any career fair, you really need to research the organizations, and you need to understand not only what they're looking for, but also if you have certain interest and values and certain skills that you can bring to an organization, you need to understand what they're looking for. All right, so it's very important to look at their website, look at different publications about the organization, maybe go on LinkedIn and follow them on LinkedIn. And if they're a part of Handshake, you can actually find out what's going on about the company, even with Handshake, and what types of jobs they've posted. Now, the other important part, obviously, before you start a job search, you need to have a really well-prepared resume. So we would like to be able to critique and give you feedback about, your resume. And the other big part, because you will be presenting yourself, you need to understand how to present yourself with your elevator pitch. So you need to practice how you're going to introduce yourself. Hi, my name is Joanna Mon. I'm a career counselor with Framingham State University, and go into a little bit more detail. And then the next step would be, after you've introduced yourself, it's very possible that an employer might throw out a particular question to you. Why did you choose your major? Why are you interested in our organization? So you have to think through, what you're going to say. The other important part that we have to be concerned about today, in today's world, would be getting your space ready in a room where it's quiet, so that you can attend a virtual event. So there is hopefully no background noise. Do the best that you can, because if you have roommates, family, pets, dogs, these things do happen, but do your best to find a quiet spot. And then the other thing we'll be talking a little bit about, I want to introduce to you more of the kind of the best practices of how you will follow up if you've had a conversation with one of the employers. So we'll talk a little bit about a follow-up thank you note and also cover letters that you might be following up with specific people at a company that you've just quickly spoke with. So some of you will be very interested in finding an internship. So what I would like to do is introduce you to my colleague, Jill Gardosic, and she is our internship coordinator. Take it away, Jill.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I really do appreciate it. If we could just advance to the next slide. Terrific.
Okay.
Thanks, students, for participating today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go over some of the roles between the student, your academic advisor, and the Career Services Office. And then I'm just going to touch upon 3 programs that I work on, 3 specific internship programs. So a lot of students have questions about who is responsible for doing what in terms of an internship search. As Joanne mentioned just a few moments ago, in career services and employer relations, we are here to help you get prepared to search on your own. So all of the career counselors, including myself, can assist you with that preparation to go out to search. Your resume, your cover letter, conducting mock interviews. We can talk about search strategies, preparing references and thank you notes. So that's our role. When it comes to the searching, that's going to be you. If you want to earn academic credit for your internship, that conversation begins and ends with your academic advisor. They're there to help you determine which semester might be best for you to complete an internship course to earn credit, making sure that you meet all the correct prerequisites. And they're the ones who are going to decide if whatever internship it is that you do find is appropriate and meaningful for you to earn academic credit. If we could just go to the next slide. Great, thanks so much. So what your role is, you really want to start out as a student, you need to kind of understand what it is that you want to do for a career after you graduate and complete your degree. That'll help you narrow down your internship search. It'll help you target certain industries and be more prepared to target that resume, cover letter, and prepare for research strategies. And again, you are going to be the one to search, apply, interview, and then finally accept a position. We just like to note to students that once you've accepted a position, there really isn't any turning back. In order to be professional and build strong professional relationships, once you accept something, you want to honor your commitment to the employer. And just something else to think about, still in this day and age, there's an awful lot of internships that are in fact unpaid. So just make sure that if you see an internship that's of interest to you and it is an unpaid role, make sure that you can afford to take it, because it might mean scaling back on a part-time job in order to accommodate the hours you're going to be spending at your internship location. And then Joanne, if we could go to the next slide. One of the programs that I oversee, this is the first of 3 I'm just going to briefly mention, is the Washington Center. The Washington Center runs a really great program where you can move to Washington, D.C., and you're in essence earning 4 academic credits. You're replacing a semester of study at FSU, earning 4 academic credits at FSU. There are 3 parts to this program. You spend about 30 hours a week, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Thursday at an internship site. You take an evening course once a week for 3 hours. And then on Fridays, you participate in group professional development activities. So it's a very comprehensive program. Please be on the lookout in Handshake. You can register for an upcoming information session that I'm holding along with a representative from the Washington Center on Wednesday, October 14th from 12:30 to 2:30. We're going to have it on Zoom, and we're going to be answering questions in particulars on this program. Next slide, please, Joanne.
There you go.
Thanks so much. Hopefully, a lot of you, if you're upperclassmen at least, you've heard of the CHOICE program that I administer. CHOICE is a funding source that's eligible for students on a first come, first served basis. If you are in fact enrolled in an internship course at FSU, where you're going to be earning academic credit the semester that you're completing your internship, and that internship happens to be at either a nonprofit or a government office or even one of our academic centers or institutes. So like the John Stalker Institute or something like that, you can earn a stipend for that internship potentially. But you have to remember that there's a lot of student eligibility requirements. They're all listed on the student application, which can be found on our website. And you just want to keep in mind that you may not get the funding. So again, it just goes back to that, remembering that if you're accepting an unpaid internship, that you need to make sure you honor your commitment to the employer, even if things don't work out with choice. Okay, and then the last slide for me, Joanne, please. We have one other funding source. It's called Pathways. Pathways is run out of the Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Engagement Office. There's a wonderful woman, Manny Gibson. She's an executive assistant in that office. She administers this program. It's similar to Choice, but slightly different. It's a funding alternative if you don't meet the student eligibility criteria for Choice, and one of those criteria being an overall GPA of a 2.75 or higher. Pathways may be a funding option for you. The only difference with this program, it's required that students that are earning this funding must complete 4 one-on-one career counseling appointments with our office. It's to help prepare you the best way possible to be successful at that internship and beyond. So I've listed all of Manny's contact information here in case you're interested in that particular program. So thanks so much, Joanne. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jill. All right. So Jill just mentioned how important it is to do some research and understand what you'll be looking for in terms of an internship. It's very important whether you're looking for an internship or a full-time job, or just researching to be prepared for a career fair, our events next week. So what I wanted to include here, I think sometimes students forget how amazing our research librarians are on campus. And if you, at some point, need to gather more information about potential employers or get a directory of different types of employers you'd like to eventually apply to in terms of different types of jobs, the research librarians are there to assist you. And you can set up a virtual appointment, you can email them, you can go in to the library. So you would have to get in touch with them to set that up. But in addition, I've included some links that you could go to it at some point and take a look on how to research companies, because you need to be prepared and understand, because it's not unusual for employers these days to ask you, why are you interested in us? What do you know about our company? And that can make a big difference if you're very well informed. So this is a screenshot from the library website. And as you can see, they have different types of databases you can take a look at. They have research guides. They have what are called LibGuides for every major at Framingham State. So I encourage you to really use them. Now, let's talk about different ways that you're going to be looking for jobs. You probably have heard from many, many people how networking is one of the best ways to get a job. So basically what you are doing is you're broadcasting to friends, family, classmates, professors, anybody that you know, that you are looking for, let's say, a certain type of internship. Let's say you're looking for a lab assistant role or an IT role. You need to talk with people. You need to make sure they know. And I used the number 75 to 85% of job seekers will find their jobs through contacts. It really depends on the source you go to. I have seen much higher numbers more recently. Sometimes 80 to 90% of the jobs are found through networking. So I encourage all of you to think of what I call warm contacts, people that know you well. It can be family, it can be neighbors, it can be friends, it can be high school friends' parents. You just never know who knows someone that might be able to help you. And they are there to advocate for you, once you make that clear, to them. So networking, yes, it's the best way to find a job, but I want you to be aware of other techniques. So as I mentioned earlier, Handshake is a wonderful resource for FSU students. We have local, national companies that will post their jobs on Handshake. You also need to be prepared for our virtual career fairs. These are opportunities for you to speak with some of our local employers. And some of our employers will actually be participating even right after this session. So you'll have a preview if you want to ask questions of those employers. You also could select very targeted organizations, because I know with some majors, most likely where you're going to be searching. I think of our nutrition majors, and I don't know if we have anyone who is in a nutrition program, but many of our nutrition majors know that they will be seeking opportunities within a hospital setting. So there's no reason why they can't gather all the contact information at local hospitals, and that's what we would call a targeted search. And the other thing that you can do is, and you should be on LinkedIn. As I've mentioned here, LinkedIn is the largest social media site for professionals to stay in touch. And you can, even if you are in your sophomore year, you can open up your LinkedIn profile, set that up, and gradually start to add information there and expand your contacts, because it's important for you to start to have a professional network. And the other reason why you should make sure your contacts know that you are seeking a job, some companies will have an employee referral program. So if you are recommended by, say, your high school friend's parent at a particular company, and that parent works there, and then you join them, the parent will get maybe $500 or $700 or some amount for bringing a new employee on board. So definitely keep that in mind. So let's talk a little bit about the resume, because it is such an important document as you begin your search. I want you to really think of the resume as your marketing tool, because when you think about it, that document is going to be making a first impression before you walk through the door. And it needs to, as I mentioned here, it needs to really spark the employer's curiosity, and they have to be interested in something that they see on your resume. Otherwise, they obviously wouldn't be calling you in for an interview. So part of your homework is understanding what the employer is looking for. What kinds of skills do they need? Look at job descriptions. Even if you're not ready to apply yet, find out what their wish list is so that you have a better idea. You're not going to be surprised. And then look within. Find out what types of courses take a look at the courses you've been completing, the lab skills, the technology you're learning about, how to interact with patients as a nutritionist, all those kinds of things, because that's what we have to make sure we include on your resume, specific skills and accomplishments, all right? So that's why I just feel it's so important for you to do that homework ahead of time. And I really believe that all of us take for granted what we do on our jobs. And I think as a college student, you're still learning about yourself. You're becoming much more aware of who you are and your strengths and interests. So do that homework ahead of time and make sure you understand how you are marketable, how you're going to help an employer in the future. And think about your accomplishments and the things that you have achieved, even as a college student. And we'll talk a little further about how you take a look at things like that. So this slide just gives you an idea of the basics, things that you need to really include on your resume and how it should be set up. So if we look at the format, it has to be very easy to read. It can't look like a page from a book, with dense text. It's because people will not spend the time looking at it. It's okay to have some white space around that document, almost like a picture frame or surrounding your, your resume. We tend to use bullet format versus paragraphs. Years ago, it was not unusual to have the paragraphs, but we've seen that with a bulleted format, things kind of pop off the paper a little bit more, and it focuses somebody's eyes to some of those accomplishments. In my opinion, I think you should use the same font all the way through your resume. You might have say 12-point font for a subheading, but I'd rather that you not go below 11-point font for the body of your resume. And you will be listing your jobs and internships in reverse chronological order. Sometimes when we take a look at students' first draft of a resume, they go in chronological order, and we have to reverse that. And the reason being, what you're doing more recently is going to probably pique the interest of an employer, because those are more of your updated skills. And then in terms of format, you also can use capitalized font, bold, you can italicize. I like to capitalize the subheadings and bold those so that the reader can see those very quickly. And I would say 99% of our undergrads are going to have a one-page resume. And that's what I would strive for. And then you have to be honest in terms of the content. Don't put something in there that you might not be able to address in detail. Let's say it was a job that you had when you started, your first job in high school, and it was a long time ago. We don't have to put every single job that you've included. We're going to take the most relevant jobs. And you're not going to be using full sentences. It's going to be phrases. You don't have to use the pronouns, the I's, the me's, my's, them. And you're not putting in personal information. And the other thing that you will not be doing is you're not going to have references available upon request. We used to end our resumes that way, but we don't do that anymore. So you do want to review your work. Let us take a look, proofread it, make sure there's no errors. Don't depend on spell check for everything. As I mentioned here, it might not catch those capitalized subheadings, and make sure that you're just being very consistent from one section to the next. And we can help you with that. We can spot things like that. And in my opinion, use the present tense verbs for the current jobs. And if you've already accomplished something, past tense it for previous jobs. So again, we're not going to be putting every single job that you've had on your resume if you can't address questions if the employer asks. We're using phrases. You don't have to add pictures or graphics unless somebody is a graphic designer. Sometimes they might do something a little different. We don't want to have the same repetitive wording. If you've had 3 customer service jobs, we don't want you to put the same exact wording under all of those. We can help you, and we might remove one of the customer service jobs. No photographs, no personal information. And this is really important. Do not use the resume templates that you might find online. The reason being, they're forcing you to fill in sections of that template, and it might not be relevant to what you are looking for. All right, so let us help you in terms of how you're going to set that up. And then, as I mentioned before, you're not going to be listing references available upon request. You're going to have a separate document, totally, that would be available if employers ask. So just a few best practices. You have to make sure that whatever is on your resume is going to be really geared and slanted towards your most current job objective. So whatever you're looking for, we want to have information that supports those interests. And if you've done your homework and you understand what some of the marketable skills are, and you know what employers are looking for, if you have that knowledge, then we're going to get that on your resume. For our computer science majors, we're going to make sure there's a section called technical knowledge, so they know that you've been introduced to particular technology. You have to make your resume stand out. And the other thing you have to be concerned about these days, many employers have software, automatic tracking systems. It's software that will search for keywords, and some of the fonts that I have described here are easier for the software to be able to read. Your resumes will be scanned much easier with some of these. And the other thing that's very different now, you don't have to have an objective on the top of your resume. 2 reasons. You'll be applying online 99.9% of the time. The employer knows what job you're applying for, and you'll be putting together a cover letter that's customized for that job, and you'll be specific with the job title. You'll be mentioning that. So when you start to write your resume, what I want you to think about is this particular slide. So I call it a CAR statement, challenge, action, result. Sometimes you hear it called PAR, problem, action, result. We also use the term STAR, situation, task, action, result, but they all end in action and results. So what I really mean by that, what kinds of results? So here are some ideas, some questions I'll throw out to you. Have you ever trained a new employee? If you've had a customer service job, maybe you did train someone in customer services and how to use the, how to complete cash and credit transactions. Have you reorganized data using Excel? Are you really good at Excel? And can you compose all sorts of complex information and have information available for managers to make an informed decision? That's a skill. Have you resolved issues with angry customers or clients? If you have the way of calming people down in some fields, that's going to be very, very important. And any time that you may have improved a system, came up with an idea to save time, save money. Those are really positive results. Not all of your accomplishment statements will have something that clear, but you strive for that. And when you do start these accomplishment statements, I want you to think of these resume action verbs. So these are some general action verbs. You take a look and see, even if we look at, for those people who are very scientific, verified, validated, use words like that. And then I have some other ones in terms of research and analytical skills: traced, identified. You want to use powerful verbs. We're not going to be saying responsibilities included, duties included. That's too vague. We want to get right into that. And here are some technical verbs that you could use. I know with our computer science majors, many times you're going to be using troubleshoot or troubleshot, a particular issue with technology. So definitely take a look at some of these. Here are some sample accomplishment statements. And what I've done in the blue font, I'm pointing out those action verbs. So I'll let you take a look at some of these. Some of these might not apply, to you in terms of your major. Some general ones that I think are important. If you've ever been recognized by a supervisor or complimented by a supervisor for outstanding decision-making skills and the ability to multitask, you can put that on your resume, And if you've been sought out by peers for advice on anything, customer service approach, new technology for remote projects, you can include things like that. And that just gives the employer an idea of how you are a team player. So I encourage you to take a look at these at your convenience for some ideas of how you might build some of your accomplishment statements. So let's talk a little bit about the elevator pitch. This will be very, very important when you are introducing yourself at a career fair. It's also very important, let's say, at the beginning of an interview, because it's not unusual for employers to open up the conversation in an interview with "tell me about yourself" or "walk me through your resume." And that's really the way that you could design your elevator pitch. So you are going to be introducing yourself. You're going to be talking about your skills. If you've done your homework and you understand what marketable skills you have and what employers are looking for, you can throw those right out and make sure they know, that. And then kind of address why you're interested in that particular internship or that particular job with that company, and maybe why you're interested in the industry as a whole, maybe why you chose your major, your skills and your interests. So it's something that takes time, and you probably will adapt that elevator pitch depending on if you're speaking to someone at the beginning of an interview or if you're speaking with someone virtually during a job fair. So it's not something that you can just throw together quickly. I really feel like you have to take some time to think about what you're going to say. And I will have some links at the end of this presentation so that you can do a little bit more research on the elevator pitch. So let's just talk a little bit about the interview. And if you're having a conversation with one of our employers next week, it's not going to be as detailed, most likely, as it would be if you were face-to-face in it, being invited in for an interview. But what they are doing, even at a career fair, what they're trying to do is they need to understand if you are going to be a good match for them, all right? So they need to know how you will fit into their organization. But you also, this should be a conversation. You also should be finding out, is this a good fit for me? Can I picture myself here? How do I feel about, say, walking into this company, or how am I being treated even in a virtual meeting? Are people seem to be friendly? Would I feel comfortable? Am I going to learn from this person if they are my hiring manager? So you also are figuring out if this is right for you. So really, to be successful, in my opinion, for an interview, it all goes back to making sure you understand who you are, what your skills are, and how they match up with that employer. If you can envision that and do your homework. You also have to be ready for very typical interview questions. So, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Why are you interested in us? What skills can you bring to our organization? The list, goes on. And that's a part of it. But you have to be able to think of questions that you're going to ask the employer to show them how interested you are in this opportunity. Because you can just imagine if I've interviewed someplace and then somebody says, "So Joanne, do you have any questions for me?" And I say, no. That's not a good thing. It's not a good sign, because it's going to give the employer the impression that I'm not really interested. And if they offered me the position, I might not even accept it. So if I was their number one candidate, why bother asking me back for a second appointment? Because maybe I'm not that interested. So the other thing that we encourage you to do is practice out loud. And that's why mock interviews are so important. And we can help you through that process. Not that we can ask you technical questions, scientific questions, but we can ask you those traditional interview questions and get you to think on the spot in a safe environment so that you practice with us and be prepared. So this basically just shows you what I've just discussed, that it's a conversation going back and forth. You're both trying to figure out if you're the right fit, and it's your job to communicate effectively so that they understand your skills, your strengths, your personality, your ability to be a good candidate if they do select you for this position. So the other thing to think about, and here I was trying to customize things for our STEM students. So you have to be able to talk about, this is what I know. I am familiar with very specific technical software applications. I am very familiar with, and I know how to use laboratory equipment, or I have clinical abilities and techniques to be able to interact with your patients. Then what do you do? All right. So you provide technical support for users. You adhere to safe laboratory procedures. you are able to counsel and educate patients on health concerns. So these are some of the specifics that you would use when you answer a question, when you use as part of your introduction in your elevator pitch, all right? And then what about some of your personal traits? You know, if you've been complimented by professors or coworkers, coworkers even with part-time jobs in the traditional college type jobs, that's important too. I'm detail-oriented and very organized. I'm methodical and accurate. To me, that's important, especially if you are a lab assistant and you're working with chemicals. I'm personable and articulate. That's going to show a lot about your personality if you're able to kind of describe yourself with wording, something like this. So I mentioned some of the questions you might be asked in an interview. You know, the tell me about yourself. What are your major strengths? What are your weaknesses or areas where you need to make an improvement? We can help you through that process in terms of how you would present a weakness and turn it into a strength in terms of how you're compensating for that weakness. So those are the kinds of things that we definitely talk about in our mock interviews. But what do you know about the organization? What do you know about this position? These are the types of questions you have to be prepared for, all right? This just goes into a little bit more detail about what you would ask the employer. You can ask, what qualities do you feel someone in this position will be successful if they have, you know, what type of qualities? You could ask, why do you like working for ABC company? Why is this job available? Is this a new position? If not, did someone get promoted? You need to know that. You want to understand. So these are some of the questions that you can consider. What we don't want you to do when they ask, do you have questions, Joanne? It's really important, especially in the first interview, you shouldn't be asking about benefits or salary. I would rather that you do some research in advance. More importantly, if you're coming back for a second interview and they are ready to offer you a position, that's when you need to know. But that's a whole other topic in terms of doing research in terms of salaries. But you can find out benefits on their website. If they're a pretty sophisticated company, it's probably all there, you know, so you would know. And that would be for full-time positions, certainly not internships in most cases. So mock interviews, I can't say enough about the experience of going through a mock interview. So I really encourage you to, you know, to plan for something like that. And then we'll review the typical interview questions, and then you have the chance to practice your, you know, your answers. So let's just talk about getting your workspace ready when you attend our virtual fair next week. Hopefully it's been very quiet here in my room without too many distractions. You try to have a background that's pretty plain, you know, nothing too distracting. We talk about not having dishes in the background or laundry or a TV going. Do the best that you can to test out your computer equipment in advance. Make sure that you can access, you know, that people can hear you, you can hear them, and that the camera, this is a little challenging because we tend to have the habit of looking at somebody on the screen in front of us, but you try to keep it. What I try to do is have my laptop up just a little higher so that my camera is almost at eye level. Not quite, but you try to do that. And then I do have a glass of water, a bottled water, just in case, you know, I've been doing a lot of talking, and it's absolutely fine for you to have either a glass of water or bottled water. And that comes in handy. Let's say they've just asked me a very difficult question, and I really have to think about how I'm going to answer that question. I take that sip of water, I put that down, and it gives you some seconds, you know, some time to think about what you're going to say. So there's two purposes for having that glass of water. The other thing that you need to do, you need to take this virtual meeting very seriously, and you want to dress professionally. You want to make sure that you know, that you take it seriously, because they are going to get a better sense of if you're too relaxed or you're just not kept properly. So I also heard somewhere along the line that you should have a solid color dress. And I think they were referring, especially for men, in terms of too many stripes, in terms of a busy tie or a busy shirt. So that's something to keep in mind. Make sure you're always professional. They also feel like you should, like, we can't see everybody here, but if you are being interviewed, make sure that your camera is on, so they can see you, and show them that you do have good eye contact, and try to make sure that your face is kind of framed in the picture. I wouldn't want to be too far away, because they might not be able to read my facial reactions and things like that. So just make sure you keep that in mind, and just try to be as enthusiastic as you can, because it is a little more challenging in terms of virtually. So let's just talk a little bit about the follow-up, because if next week you have a nice conversation with a few of the employers, it's really important for you to have the information about their name, their email, so that you can send them a thank you note, just as you would if you were going in for an interview. Every time you meet with an employer and you've had a conversation, you should be sending a thank you note, because it can really make a big difference. And you're going to just thank them for their opportunity, thank them for attending our event, and you want to show them how enthusiastic you were about the position that they spoke about, or their organization, and future opportunities that might arise. And it helps you stay connected with them also. So I can't say enough about thank you notes. And it's okay to send an email, no problem at all. You try to send a professional email within 24 hours. And if you've met with several people, you want to tweak it. You don't want the exact same email with the same exact wording, going to each person. And I would suggest that you be formal. So here on the slide, we say Ms. Smith, and then you use a colon, because it is a business letter versus a personal letter. And again, just be honest, talk about what you enjoyed about learning about the company and the position. And if you had applied through Handshake, you're going to make sure you follow up with information about that. Thank them for their time. That's always important, right? And again, whether it's a thank you note or even say a cover letter, people are going to be really following the same type of format. So if you do have multiple people, as I mentioned, you have to just change the wording a little bit. And then when you're applying, for a different type of job, just follow the instructions. Let me just see what I have here. You definitely want to follow instructions. If you've had a conversation with them about a certain topic, just make sure you reiterate some of the details. So it'll help them recall who you were and a little bit more about the details. So if you are doing cover letters, the same type of thing. We talked about how you're going to be customizing that cover letter. It should be one-page document that will accompany your resume. I'll share my opinions. I think it should be the same font as your resume. Make sure that they're clear and to the point. Again, you're going to use the colon versus a comma. What we don't want you to do, we don't want you to put "to whom it may concern" or "dear sir, madam." That is too impersonal. And the other thing is, try not to start every sentence with "I." That we don't want to do. So I gave you some phrases that you can consider. So those cover letters are going to make a good impression by showing them your experience, and the proof is in the pudding, what you've been able to do. So you need to stress your accomplishments. And this just breaks it down in terms of what you put in the first page. I'll have you, take a look at that. I just want to watch the time. And then the second page, you just basically reinforce more details. And then the final paragraph, always thank them for their time and consideration. And you might identify certain steps that you're going to take. So here are some resources. But what I would like to do is just, if people do have questions, I'd like to be able to address those questions about any of these topics. All right. Well, if people do have questions, they think of something later, you can certainly reach out via email. J. Aman, and here's the other contact information, careerservices@framingham.edu.
Well, I think Joanne deserves a big round of applause, and thank you very much, Joanne. That was amazing. And we'll have this video on our YouTube channel in case you want to refer back to it at some point.